Raising the minimum wage for fast food workers has been grabbing a lot of attention lately. We'll see how the quest for 15 and a union looks in Kansas City.
Also, When I Come to Die puts capital punishment on stage at the KC Rep.
And Sydney Milstein drops by to talk architectural marvels at Pratt & Whitney, all coming up on The Local Show. Hi, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Nick Haynes. This week our show begins with a topic that's gotten a lot of attention in the last few months, raising the minimum wage. You know, currently it's $7.25 an hour in Kansas and $7.50 in Missouri, which is the same as the federal rate.
Starting last summer, the Kansas City area saw a series of strikes by fast food workers demanding 15 and a union. It was part of a nationwide movement to address what the workers feel is a poverty wage. President Obama recently mentioned it in his State of the Union address.
Reporter Steve Hebert followed the strikers during several of last year's demonstrations and gives us this look inside the issue and the economics that surround it.
I don't want to live in an America that allows people to work 60 hours a week and live below the poverty line. I don't think anyone wants to live in that America. And that is the America that we're creating with this minimum wage. This minimum wage is not enough money for people to live on, and that should be an issue for anyone who claims the great values of this country. We have a wonderful country with great democratic values. If we're going to claim those values, we cannot allow people to live in poverty and work full time.
It's extremely hard because right now, if anyone that's working minimum wage can work a full 80 hours every 2 weeks and they're only bringing home $300 to $400, that's half of a light bill or half of a gas bill. So it's extremely hard to live on $7.35 in this economy.
I make $9.43 an hour, and that's not enough to get by. It's not enough to pay bills. It's not enough to make rent every month. I live in fear our utilities will be shut off every month. You know, it's hard to afford food sometimes. It's rough. It's definitely not enough. We need more.
If you do the math, someone who's working 60 hours a week at the minimum wage will not earn enough to even meet the federal poverty standards for a family of four. And working at the number of hours that the fast food industry, for example, typically allots to their workers, you can't even get close to earning a sufficient amount to provide for yourself and your family.
My jobs don't match up off days, so I work 7 days a week. I'm up early in the morning, often before my kids awake, and I'm home at night. By the time I get home, they're asleep. So it's consecutive days I don't see my kids. Me and my fiance, we barely see each other. It's brief hi and bye. So it's really damaging to my family structure. It's not normal.
Turn it up! Turn it up! Turn it up! Turn it up!
A recent study from the University of California, Berkeley focused on the public costs of low-wage jobs in the fast food industry. The study found that the median wage of workers was $8.69 an hour. Median hours worked was 30 per week. And only 13% of workers receive health benefits through their employer. It highlighted that 52% of the families of frontline fast food workers are enrolled in one or more public safety net programs compared to 25% of the U.S. workforce as a whole. The study focused on the 4 largest nationwide safety net programs and found that in Missouri, 49% of fast food workers relied on public assistance, with a cost to the U.S. taxpayer of $149 million a year.
Hey! Ho, ho! These poverty wages got to go! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! These poverty wages got to go! Hey, hey!
The Berkeley study concluded that due to low wages and benefits and part-time employment, nationwide, families of fast food workers utilize federal public benefit programs at a cost to the U.S. taxpayer of nearly $7 billion a year.
And so when you divide that $7 billion among those workers, what it works out to is basically $4 an hour. So if we take the minimum wage, which is $7.25, and add to that those $4, to get those workers to the point they are now, would require a wage of $11.25, and that's basically at a welfare level. If you look at the total amount of profits and dividends that were distributed by the fast food industry, it's well to the north of $7 billion. So basically what's happening here is a transfer, and it's a transfer from ordinary taxpayers to those who make profit out of the fast food industry.
Me and my fiance, and we both work. I work 2 jobs, so if you do it, it's 3 incomes, 3 jobs, and yet we still get food stamps. We'd rather make our way and go to work and make money and not have to get food stamps or depend on Medicaid. But I can say now I would not be able to feed my kids without food stamps. So I appreciate, and a lot of workers appreciate the program. But for a person that's up working every day, it shouldn't be that way.
Got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho.
The National Restaurant Association represents fast food restaurant owners. They dispute the Berkeley study, saying, America's restaurant industry provides opportunities for millions of Americans, women and men from all backgrounds, to move up the ladder and succeed. These misleading efforts use a very narrow lens and selective data to attack the industry for their own purposes, and fail to recognize that the majority of lower wage employees works part-time to supplement a family income. Moreover, 40% of line staff workers in restaurants, the primary focus of the reports, are students. The Berkeley researchers claim that this is not an accurate assessment of the workforce and dispute the idea that most workers are teenagers living at home with their parents. They break down the workforce this way and state, overall, 68% of the core frontline workers in the fast food industry are not in school and are single or married adults with or without children. And for more than 2/3 of these workers, fast food wages are an essential component of family income.
My mom worked in fast food for as long as I can remember. When I was born, she worked at Godfather's. When my little brother was born, she worked at McDonald's. When my other sister was born, she worked at Wendy's. She always struggled to pay rent, to make sure we had food. 4 days after I turned 16, I started my first job at Pizza Hut. My oldest daughter just turned 16 a few months ago and started her first job at Steak and Shake as a server. I desperately want to break this cycle. I don't ever want my children to settle for less. I want them to know that they are worth more. We are worth more. So we're fighting to make it happen.
15, 15, show me, 15, 15, 15, 15, 15.
If you have an employee that's been paid $7.50 an hour and their wages suddenly doubled, a few things end up happening. First, probably the cost of the goods are going to rise. That's going to affect consumers. Also, employers are going to be a lot more picky about which employees they hire, because if they have to spend that much on an employee, they want to make sure that they have the very best employees, which means that lower skilled workers, I think, would be harmed.
Hey, 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 ho, ho, hourly wages got to go, hey, hey.
It also pushes employers toward technological innovations, automation that would also not only affect employees short term, but would also probably lock them out of a lot of different sorts of jobs over the long haul by essentially replacing them with technology that was too expensive before, but because labor has gotten more expensive, is a little bit more attainable for employers. So those three elements by themselves, I think, requires that we reflect on exactly what we're trying to accomplish when we talk about the minimum wage issue. If we're trying to alleviate poverty, it's really about making jobs more available and more accessible, and unfortunately, in a lot of respects, raising the minimum wage will work against that end.
Get down! KC is a union town. Get up! Get down! KC is a union town. Get up! Get down! KC is a union town.
By 1945, 1 out of every 3 workers in this country was in a union. And that created the momentum to build the middle class. And not only did workers get raises and some job security so that they weren't living in poverty, but they also got pensions, they got days off for vacations, they got holidays. All of these things the fast food workers today lack. They have no holidays, they have no vacation days, and certainly they have no pensions and they have no health care, most of them. Their working conditions are very, very similar to the working conditions of people who were in mass production industry in the 1930s. They did something about it, and now nobody says that they shouldn't make a decent wage. We got used to the idea that you work in a factory, you join the middle class. And I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be true for somebody who works at Wendy's or Pizza Hut.
The U.S. economy suffers from a chronic lack of demand for goods and services. And one of the reasons for that is because there's no purchasing power in the hands of the majority of consumers. If there were more dollars in the hands of the middle classes and the lower classes, and this is the economic argument, this would stimulate demand and generate new jobs in the private sector and have the entire multiplier effects that we're all familiar with from Econ 101.
When you talk about raising someone's wages, particularly on those who are lower wage earners, in the larger economy, it doesn't have a really large impact. I think that when that argument is made, it's overstated, unfortunately, and I think it conceals the more important problems of putting low-wage, low-skilled workers out of a job by implementing wage hikes that may, in the end, actually harm them more than help them, and let alone put more money into the economy.
If we had more money and we make the more money, we're gonna spend it. We're gonna put it back in the economy, which would essentially grow jobs. Because if I had more money, I would shop more. I would buy more for my kids, along with a lot of other people here in this country. So I don't see how the raising the wage would ruin the economy or cost jobs.
Workers are here to deliver a demand that they want to see changed. This is going to give other workers who aren't organizing a chance to see something they've never seen. Workers coming together, raising their voices for change at work.
We're gonna go out there and raise our voices together and be heard, and we're not gonna back down until we get what we want. We want 15 in a union, and that's what we're gonna get.
I'm here fighting for you, I'm fighting for my family and my future and for a better life for all of us, and I'm glad we're all here standing up for what's right. So we want 15 in a union, and we want it now.
Now, no workers were fired for their participation in the demonstrations, but some employees at a local Popeyes did temporarily see a reduction in their hours. They've since had them restored. Organizers of the strikes, which so far have all taken place on the Missouri side, say they plan to continue their activities again this year.